Good morning, everyone, or good night, or good afternoon, depending on where in the world you're tuning in from. We're going to get started with our webinar in just a couple of minutes. But before we do, if everybody could just use the chat feature and type in just so that we make sure the sound is working okay, you can just write a simple, "I can hear you," and then we'll get started. Okay, thank you for that. It looks like everybody can hear us okay. So to take a step back, my name is Anna. I work in the Office of MBA Admissions here at Stern, and we're so pleased to be able to present Community at Stern International Clubs to you today. So to give a little bit of an overview of international life here at Stern, about 33% of the class of 2021 has international citizenship, and 37 countries are represented in the class. And so I have 4 current Stern students here with me today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves to start off the conversation.
Good morning, all. Hope you all can hear me. As you can see by my picture and my name on the screen. My name is Mauricio. I'm originally from Brazil. Worked in a couple of roles within the energy engineering space before I moved to Stern. And I'm highly involved in LABA, Latin America Business Association, which is a club that we're going to be exploring. Also president of the Energy Club here, and a VP for Stern FC, which is it's not international, but it is at the same time, which is great. This is one of the groups that gets people from all over the world to get together. Super happy to be here talking to you.
Great, thank you for that.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Payal. I'm from Bombay in India. Before Stern, I worked in advertising technology, primarily with media.net. At Stern, I'm recruiting for consulting, and I'm heavily involved with the South Asian Business Association, which I'd love to tell you more about.
Great. Next up, we have Eli.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eli Jiang, originally from China. Before Stern, I worked in IT consulting. Here at Stern, I'm involved with Asian Business Society and happy to share more about that, as well as some of the diversity and inclusion initiatives going on campus as well, if you are interested.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karthik. I'm from New Delhi, India originally. I did my undergrad in business from Delhi University and then spent 5 years in real estate, which was split between a startup and a real estate consulting firm. At Stern, I'm involved with the Management Consulting Association and with the South Asian Business Association, which I'll talk about later on in the chat.
Wonderful. So let's get started by talking about each of your personal journeys to Stern. So to start off broadly, what made you decide to pursue an MBA in America, and why specifically did you choose Stern? Anyone can start off.
I'll give this a go. It's funny, as we logged into this webinar, I realized that I think I attended one of these last year. So it's great that you guys are tuning in. In terms of pursuing an MBA, I think I'd worked for about 4 years prior to coming to Stern. And I realized I wanted to get more exposure and basically learn more about the business world, which is why I thought doing an MBA from a US business school would make a lot of sense. Stern specifically, I love the interactions that I had with the current Stern students last year. One of the things that I specifically remember is that Stern students would reach out and want to chat with us even before we had submitted our application or we were admitted or confirmed students. So I love the sense of community that already sort of shown through. And I think the people was one of the strongest reasons that I decided to come to Stern.
So the decision to pursue an MBA was I think it's pretty similar. I have been working for over 5 years in Brazil, different roles. And I kind of wanted, I think it's a good way to stop, think about your career for 2 years, do something that's very different, very interesting. I applied to a couple of programs, and Stern for me has a good combination about like, I always wanted to be in a big city where there's more to life than just like being at school. But at the same time, wanted to be in a school where I felt part of something. And I think I'll echo and probably will echo everybody here in the room about Stern mentions a lot about the emotional intelligence and the EQ when you guys are like looking into the applications. And I was very happily surprised once I got in how much this is a part of our life and about the culture of the school. People are very willing to help, you know. So even this kind of webinars with current students and this kind of events are something that's pretty common. And I think that's like the biggest differential of Stern is just like everybody's always willing to help us. So I think this is like one of the main reasons that got me to come to Stern, and I'm super happy to say that it's true. So it's something that it's really good.
So for me, the decision to pursue an MBA in the US, I've been in India all my life, so I wanted to branch out, come to a different country, and I personally feel that US business schools, they invest very heavily into their education system. They have the best pedigree, they have the best professors. So for me, that was the academic reason for coming to the US as opposed to any other country. As far as Stern is concerned, again, I'll echo what Payal and Matthias said. It's in New York. So for me, another parallel reason was that I wanted to do consulting and I wanted to pursue a real estate path as well. And New York is one of the most dynamic real estate markets in the world. As far as the people at Stern are concerned, as Payal said, people were very happy to reach out to me from Stern even before I had my interview. And even after coming to Stern, I think that has continued. All the MBA tools, as well as my current classmates, have been really, really helpful whenever it comes to any challenges that we face. So that was really
Hi, this is Eli. For me, it's rather straightforward because I went here for undergrad and worked here for a couple of years, and B school is always part of my plan, and makes sense for me to go to a B school in US. And for Stern, I guess in addition to the people and community aspect that many of us have shared, location is really important to me. And New York City is a financial hub as well as tech hub. At the time, I was very interested also exploring international opportunities. So a lot of companies' headquarters are based in New York City, and it's sort of easy access to some of the international representatives from those companies as well for New York City. So location is key for me.
Some of you have touched on already our New York location and how that was important to you in deciding to attend Stern. But other than that, how did you learn about different MBA programs and decide which would be the best fit for you?
Yeah, I can jump into this one. And it's actually an advice to me 2 years ago when I was applying that I didn't take to the end, but I think it's very important. It's really reach out to people, talk to current students, talk to alumni, talk to as many people as you can from the schools you're applying to. It's something that really makes a difference. You can get a good sense of like the school culture and how things work when you reach out to people. I've been talking to a lot of Latin applicants. They're coming to Stern offline because people reach out through Labo, through like just LinkedIn, reach out. And it's something that I think it's a good way to get a quick sense of how things work at schools, 30, 40, 20, 15-minute chat. So that was something that I didn't do enough, honestly, personally, but I see a lot of value now that I'm at business school. So I've been doing that a lot. A lot of people have been reaching out, and I think it speaks lots about understanding how things work at school. So I think this is like the first good advice I'll give you.
Great. It's also encouraging to hear about that pay it forward aspect of Stern, of how everyone's always willing to talk about it.
So in addition to reaching out to people, I would also encourage, since from India it was not possible for me to come and visit the school in the US. Most of the schools do events in India, and so I would encourage you to, and in whichever respective countries you are, if such events are happening, I would encourage you to go to these events. You can make connections. You can again get a very good feel of how the school functions and what are the capabilities of each respective schools, and then as Maria said, reach out to current students, because I think that's the best way to really get primary information about schools rather than just reading on the website, for example. So for me, that helped. I spoke to a lot of people from many schools in the US, and that really helped me drive my decision to eventually choose Stern over the other.
I would love to echo what my colleagues have already shared. So, of course, coffee chats are a great way, and information interviews are a great way to learn about schools. While you guys are doing that, I'd recommend that you reach out to a variety of people across, let's say, multiple industries or functions that they may be recruiting for, or even backgrounds, and try to reach out to people who've just started school, people who've just graduated, as well as people who are MBA too, so to speak, and get like a great variety of input into what the school experience has been like. I think having those conversations and actually starting to build those connections really helps. Or keep attending these kind of webinars and informational sessions. It's a great way to connect with people and great way to learn about the school. And overall, I'd just say keep researching.
Never research too much. That's definitely good advice. So moving on to life at Stern. So let's talk about the international community here and how that has impacted your experience as a student and a community member overall.
So I can share some of the things we do at Asian Business Society. I think it's really twofold. One is from a career development perspective. We put on panels, career panels for banking, consulting, and technology. We have mentorship program that pair MBA 1 with MBA 2 to sort of guide you through the first year recruiting process. So that's one part of the club experience. In addition to that, obviously, there's a social aspect to it. So, we put on karaoke nights, happy hour, as well as I guess food related. New York City is it's a great place to really get a lot of great food. So we go out quite a lot. So it's a good way sort of to get to know your fellow classmates as well as second year MBA in a more casual setting. So that really helped a lot from the first year MBA perspective, to get to know the community, get to know the city a little bit more, as well as be put ease with the recruiting process.
Yeah. It's good timing. That's just after Thanksgiving, and I mean, we at LABA, Thanksgiving is not a thing for any of us. So it's very interesting because it's very traditional. I just came back from the LABA retreat, upstate New York. Just had 17 people, MBA 1s, MBA 2s, MBA 3s, partners at a house, actually celebrating Thanksgiving, which is not a holiday for us. So I think I'm very particular to say that LABA is a big part of my experience at Stern. It's a great support network for the cultural challenges and moving to a new city. I also improved a lot of my Spanish, but that's very specific for me from Brazil since I don't speak Spanish. But honestly, as the international club's experience and how that helped my life at Stern, I think it's a very good way for us to be in touch with cultures that are more similar to ours, to meet a lot of new people in a more relaxed setting. We are the Latin America Business Association, so we do a lot of parties and eating too, which is pretty good. We are the most famous party in campus, I would say, which is not a bad reputation to have. And it's been very important for my experience here to have this support network. I also think that for me, coming from schools in Brazil, we didn't have this the club experience. It's something that's 100% new for me, and something that the school does a very good job of letting the students handle it, lead it, and do as a club the best experience possible for the students. So it's been very important for me so far.
We have one-on-one mentors. So each one of us has an MBA, has a second-year MBA who coaches us personally. And then we have these weekly sessions for consulting and for tech recruiting, wherein an MBA too will hold a session, and 15 or 20 of us attend it week on week to get that additional set of guidance over and above the regular stuff that we are doing. So I think Sabas has been really great from a cultural aspect as well as from a career perspective for me.
Frankly, I think Karthik and the rest of you guys covered it all. All in all, I feel like as an international student moving to a new country, a new city, your peers are really helpful. In fact, I remember South Asian Business Association had sent out emails and reach out even before we had started at school. For example, when I was navigating house hunting, or even figuring out what courses to pick before I started at school, these clubs provide you with a sense of community even before you've basically landed on campus or even in New York. And I think that's a very interesting part of being associated.
Excellent, thank you. So you've already touched on, all of you actually, how your clubs build community here at Stern, but would you want to share a favorite memory of either an event that was put on, or something that you attended this year, or just an interaction that really was meaningful for you?
Eli here again. I think this year one of my favorite experience has been the alumni mixer event that happened in the in early fall semester. So we were able to get MBA 1, MBA 2, as well as recent graduate MBA 3, and then on the more some alums that graduate probably earlier together. It's really great to see different generations of Cerny, and to see how their career, for alumni, how their career has evolved after graduated from Stern. So it's a great opportunity to not only get to know students, both full-time and Langone students, but also get to build those connections, starting to build those connections and tap into the broader alumni network that NYU Stern has in the city itself. So that's something that is really memorable and enjoyable experience for me.
So for me as well, it's been 4 months, so haven't had a lot of events. But then, as I said, the Diwali party, and then there was, I think the cue from Eli, there was an alumni mixer for Sabas as well, wherein I think more than 20 to 25 alums came and chatted with us. So that was a great experience, because it always helps not just to speak to second year students, but also with alums who were in school 4 or 5 years ago, and they can relate back to their school experience, and they can also guide you better with regards to how life post Stern has been. So I think for me, that is one of the, in this short span of 4 months, that is one of the memories that really stands out for me.
Maurice here again. I have two good memories from the interactions with Lab, but one more on the professional side, because again, as everybody here mentioned, we also have a mentorship program, and it's very interesting because I met one of my now MBA 3's alumnus. He was a second year when I started, and I was kind of lost going through recruiting, and we actually went for coffee in Washington Square Park and talked for an hour and a half about culture in workplace, how he had chosen his options, where he was thinking about going, his life back in Mexico, and relationships and everything. So it was a very interesting talk, and a very easy way to meet somebody new that really helped me through the process. And again, this year, our first party that the club organizes, it was very fun to see the new generation of LABA members coming in, helping us organizing and being a part. And it's always very interesting when Latin music is playing and all of us trying to teach the Americans how to dance with us. It's very interesting to have a forum to actually share some of our culture when people are very happy and very excited to be there. So I think those are very two good memories to share.
Excellent.
I guess a lot has already been covered, but one thing I'd like to add is we've only been at Stern for like around 3.5 months now, but we have these Stern social events almost every 2 weeks, 2 days in a month or so, so every second Thursday, you can imagine. And it's great because these Stern socials are organized by different clubs. So it's a great way to get to know more people beyond just your immediate community at Stern and just get to know as much as possible. So I think that's been an interesting aspect of being here.
Thank you so much. So for those of you who were moving to New York City, either from abroad or from another city, can you describe what that transition was like and how the Stern community you felt, helped with that transition?
I guess I could start. So I moved to New York, like I said, 4 months ago. Since I was primarily based in India, this was a big move. And one thing I'd like to re-echo is that being associated with these clubs and having these interactions is very helpful while you're making the transition, because a lot of people can give you advice with respect to how to, maybe go house hunting in New York City, which can get crazy. How to manage other aspects of your move, and it's nice to have this. It's nice to have that sense of perspective from somebody who's already been through this. It's also it's a big transition, and I feel like I kind of underestimated it in the beginning. So whenever I did need to stop and just like speak to somebody and like take stock of what was happening, it was always nice to be able to reach out to the MBA twos as well as my fellow MBA ones for help and just maybe a coffee once in a while to take a break. And I think that's been really helpful.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Mauricio here. I think, and I'll definitely echo that. And that's just experience moving from Brazil to the US, especially to New York. Real estate in New York, as Artik was saying earlier, it's very interesting to say the least. It was very important to me. Like when I came to interview, I actually had coffee with two Brazilian MBA twos at the time. And apart from all the tips in the interview and all like the culture part I got talking to them, they were like explaining how they found an apartment. And I was like, this is very interesting to say the least. So it was definitely something that really helped me through the process. And I'll definitely echo my colleague was saying before. It's just like, it's great to know a lot of people, and Stern puts you in, like, as we mentioned, like 37 different countries and a lot of people and a lot of exposure to the American and other cultures. I love the fact that once a month, once every 3 weeks, I can just text my Brazilian friends and we go out to a Brazilian restaurant that's 5 minutes from school and we speak Portuguese for 1 hour. It's a very welcome break, from all the changes. And that was particularly help at the beginning when you actually feel the shock about like moving to a new country. And New York is a very special city in that sense because you have Indian, Brazilian, Chinese, you have restaurants and places from all over the world. So it really helps to that transition. So I think that's something that really helped in like the first initial months.
One thing to add for me is for the, like, even within the international student community, some of them already live in the city, right? But they can give you a lot of helpful advice and tips, sort of help you transition to the city life, which could be a lot. So not only the school also provides sort of tips and information presentation on apartment hunting, life in the city, and so forth. So the resources are out there to help you adapt to the city life, but you just need to sort of keep an eye out and actively seeking help from those resources.
As the other panelists mentioned, Karthik here, as the other panelists mentioned, house hunting in New York can be especially daunting. And so for me, I think this was the biggest help that I got early on. So the MBA twos in Sabas, they created a WhatsApp group on which 5 or 7 of them were there much before our school started. So they were always there to help us and give us guidance as to which areas to look at, what aspects to take care of when looking for apartments. And for me personally, there was incidentally an MBA two who stays in the same building as I do. So eventually when I signed up my lease, he was helpful enough to go and checked the apartment for me. And then he told me that it's a good apartment, you can move into that. And this was before I came to New York. So this was somebody who I'd barely spoken to once, and he was happy to help. And that helped me avoid staying in an Airbnb or a hotel when I came to New York. I signed a lease from back in India and came here and straight away moved into my apartment. So I think that's a big help that I got from an MBA too here. So
It sounds like the transition to New York and to business school was seamless. It was really the apartment hunting that caused most of the stress here, which I can definitely relate to. So let's talk a little bit more about the MBA experience. So are there any unique challenges that you feel like you face as an international student at business school, and how has Stern helped you address and combat those challenges?
Hi, Payal here again. I feel like moving from India, one of the biggest sort of, not challenges, but different aspect of recruiting in the US is recruitment here is fairly networking heavy, while that doesn't necessarily tend to be the case in India. And I felt like, we're all conversationalists and we're all able to talk, but the networking experience in like a recruiting event can be different. So it was great that OCD did a bunch of these sessions to give us a sense of what that could look like, how we should prep ourselves, and what kind of, how we should sort of prep to engage with the person that we're interacting with as well. We also spoke to a lot of MBA tools and got their perspective on this and the way they had navigated this last year. And I think just being able to have a combination of these focus sessions and you can reach out to for more informal help is helpful when you're figuring out how to go about recruiting here.
Great to hear. Just so we don't give you OCD. OCD is the Office of Career Development here, which is a very unhappy acronym in my personal opinion. I'll definitely echo that. When I moved here from Brazil, I'm like, oh, Brazil is a culture. We have a lot of US influence. It's going to be seamless and easy. And the whole networking experience, especially for me, I recruited for investment banking, which is the most networking heavy career path when you like looking into recruiting. And then again, I think the school and GFA, which is our finance club, and all the other clubs at school gave me a lot of support. So like, how do you navigate and get used to that? So that was definitely something where I look back and I see like there's a barrier for us as international students coming in, but the school and even the setting that schools provide us at the beginning gives us a very good, let's say, toolbox to work with. And it's very easy to quickly like get to the ropes of that. And that's something that I think is the biggest difference when you look like on the recruiting side of the MBA experience. And on the academic side, I'd say, at least for me, coming from Brazil, coming from engineering school, like the classroom environment is very different. The way people participate in the volume and the amount of participation again in class is way higher here. It was something that's super interesting when I talk to my friends that either are Americans or went to school here. Just like that's the way school works here in the US, and it's fairly different from the experience I had. So that was something that was really interesting. I really like it though, but it's something that struck me as like novelty when I moved here.
Yeah, I guess I would just share more about the academic experience. I think part of curriculum is the cases, at least we discuss, are mostly US focused, US centric. So it takes some time to get the context of some of the companies that we were actually discussing in the case and in classroom. So that's something to get used to. And just echoing what was previously said, that in the classroom, the discussion is not only encouraged but expected. So I find, for me, again, coming from an engineering background as well, and some of my fellow classmates, they're not as sort of inclined or willing to engage in those discussions initially. So that's something that you probably need to sort of get used to, but also faculty members are very encouraging in terms of trying to get everybody engaged and get your unique perspective shared in the classroom.
So for me as well, this was completely a 180-degree change. The way education is delivered in the US is completely different from what I experienced in India. There are a lot of things to grasp in the first couple of weeks when you come to school. I mean, there's obviously, so I'm recruiting for consulting, and there's obviously, you need to get a hang of the industries in the US. You also need to get a hang of pop culture in the US to be able to do those networking conversations well. But I think the school provides a great support system on that end. We have the Management Consulting Association, which has provided us literally step-by-step guidance from our second or third week here at Turn. So that has been great. And as far as the academic aspect is concerned, I think I've loved attending some of my classes. Some of the professors are extremely, extremely accomplished in their respective fields. So it is great to be sitting in class and to hear them deliver their lecture. It's just awesome. And again, the class participation, most of my classmates, they participate very actively. So that's great. And also, one last thing I would like to mention is that a lot of times we find it difficult to balance the recruiting bit and the academic bit. So on that front, I think some of the professors have been really supportive and flexible in terms of if we have certain other engagements, they tend to understand that per semester can be really daunting. So yeah, that's been.
One thing that's interesting, and again, very different from my previous academic experience. Like, I've had professors from France, from Australia, from India, from Argentina. We also have a very international body of faculty here, with something that's very interesting in the sense that you're not only getting the multicultural perspective from our classmates and from recruiting and from everything, but also from the faculty members. So that's something that's super interesting too.
Thank you all for sharing that. So what would you say has surprised you the most about your MBA experience so far, whether it be academic or more social, personal aspects? Yeah, it's a hard one for just after 9 a.m. here.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely start. I guess number one, how the amount of coffee the Americans drink. It's something that's very surprising. I really had to get used to that. And look, I come from Brazil where we have a lot of coffee, but it's something that's pretty interesting. It's not good coffee though, guys. Sorry to tell you that. But that was a bit of a surprise. I'm just joking. But I think I was really surprised again. It's kind of repetitive, but it's a very different environment inside the classroom. And I think that's something that you can't understand by even just joining one class. It's just after 1.5 years now, which is kind of scary right now. But time goes by pretty fast. But I think that I've had very different styles of classes and very different styles of professors. So it's very interesting the perspective you can get from different classes in very different subjects at the same time. So I've had experiences of going from evaluation class with Professor Damodaran, which is definitely my favorite professor at school, to a leadership class right afterwards. So you change subject, you change gears, you change styles in a very dynamic pace. So I think that was something that, although people tell about time, was surprising. I think I'll go with coffee in that one.
Well, and another thing I'd like to add is, so while I primarily chose Stern for its people, I think actually I was expecting that sense of community. I mean, just to be realistic, that sense of community may waver depending on stress levels on campus with recruiting and whatnot. One thing that has pleasantly surprised me is that I feel that sense of community has held strong. Where as MBA ones, we're in the thick of recruiting, and it's a stressful time right now. And I feel like most of our peers, our MBA twos, are very supportive, and I like that. We care about each other's outcomes as well as our own outcomes, and I think that's been. I'm happy that this is the case, and it's been a pleasant surprise.
I guess I'm just, well, one thing that is surprising is that I think in B school in general, grade does not matter, which is surprising to some Asians. Anyway, the engineers as well. You know, we've been told that grades is the most important thing in our life. Kidding aside, I think the school really and the faculty members really focus on the learning instead of grades, and that's going to create an incentive for you to try out different topics that may not be something you're good at, but you are interested in. So for me, diving into marketing, brand strategy, really give me a very different perspective, and that's something obviously that was something that I'm looking for in business school education, is to get a general understanding of how all different functions of business work. So that's something that is surprising and very beneficial to my experience.
So we are coming to our last topic of conversation, which is careers at Stern. But for everyone who's tuned in right now, I do want to let you know that you can write in questions for our Q&A portion. There's a box that's called Q&A, so you can start typing in your questions, and we'll get to those in just a couple of minutes. So let's talk about careers post-MBA, and if you've decided or if you haven't decided if you'd like to stay in the US after you finish your degree, or if you'd like to either go abroad or go back to your home country, and what has influenced that decision?
Been Maurice here again. I think that's a big point of discussion now, and I'd say that's number one question in the minds of all the international students I've talked so far that are actually moving in and that weren't here before. People are like, is it getting harder? Is it not getting harder? My personal take on it, it's always been harder for internationals, and that's something that I really learned while talking to people before coming to business school. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's always been harder for international students. When you move to a new country, you have to adapt to the culture, to find the jobs and all the visa issues that pop up. The good thing I would say is number one, it's pretty doable. I'm alive, experienced that it works. I'm going back full time at Credit Suisse after my summer there. Here in New York, they're sponsoring my visa. Things will work out, hopefully. It's just understanding that at the same time, it's more challenging for us because not all the companies are looking for internationals who have that challenge. On the other side, we are all the international community here, very strong, very bright students that come from the best schools around the world. And a lot of companies really value the breadth of experience and of the cultural differences that we bring to the companies actually. So I think it's a matter of understanding that not all the companies are going to be recruiting for internationals. That's true. That has always been true in the past also. So don't think that's something new because of the way the world is walking towards, unfortunately. But the school does a very good job of being very straightforward about this, helping us navigate the networking challenges and everything else. And we have a lot of very successful stories both ways, talking specifically about the Brazilian community, if you want to mention. I'm staying here. I have another 4 MBA twos that are Brazilian that are either staying here in other positions in other companies or going back to Brazil for their own option, So Stern does a very good job at putting us open to both positions, either recruiting elsewhere in the world or recruiting here in the United States. So I'd say that we have enough support to navigate this. It's always been challenging. It will always be challenging. And I just think it's very important before coming to the MBA abroad to understand that that is a challenge. It's going to be a challenge regardless. And Stern has a lot of tools to help us navigate that.
Mauricio said. In addition to, I'm Payal, recruiting for consulting. In addition to recruiting in the US, I feel like Stern positions well in terms of recruiting internationally as well. And that's, I think, an angle a lot of people have been exploring. So in terms of tie-ups with specific offices or specific regions that you're interested in, you'll get a lot of support from your specific clubs, your MBA tours, to sort of get more context on what working in a different country like and what recruiting internationally from the US can then look like. And that's helpful. Both the GFA, which is a Graduate Finance Association, and the Consulting Club did a London trek over Thanksgiving, wherein students who were interested in recruiting for consulting went over, interacted with a lot of firms. And I think that was helpful as well. And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you.
Sure. This is Eli. I decided to go back for full time. I guess whether you wanted to seek opportunities here or home country is really a personal choice. And because for me, I have had experience in the U.S. And felt like its timing is right to go back to China. But if you're coming from your home country, it's obviously makes sense to get some experience here and then determine your long-term plan from that point. Stern, I think, as some of my panelists mentioned, set it up pretty well for you to explore both opportunities. So I personally do not find it particularly challenging to sort of identify going after the opportunities that I was looking for.
Hi, Karthik here. So for me as well, I'm recruiting for consulting. I spent 5 years in real estate, so want to explore different industries, and I think consulting would be a great place to start. As far as the geography is concerned, I'll be studying here for a couple of years, so I really would want to work in the US as well. I think studying and working in the US opens up opportunities for you across the world later on, so I definitely would want to do that. I think as far as Stern is concerned, Stern's brand equity and brand equity and the network in Europe as well as Asia is very, very strong. So as Payal was mentioning, a couple of days back, there was people just came back from a London trek, and there are a lot of Stern alums in banking as well as the top 3 consulting firms in Europe. So that's always a good thing for people who want to head to Europe and even to Asia. I think one advice that I have though is that before starting business school, you have to have some sense of direction in terms of which career path you want to follow. So you have to be a little more focused on when you start, so that you can go all in to that particular field, be it consulting or banking or consulting plus tech, and then just follow and then just make the most of the support system that's around you with regards to that particular industry.
And thank you all so much. So we do have a number of questions coming in, and we're going to do our best to answer as many as we can. But I do want to mention, if your question doesn't get answered live, you're always welcome to write in to mbaga@stern.nyu.edu, and that will be able to connect you to some of our graduate ambassadors who will also be able to answer some of your questions. So one of the questions we've received is about your most interesting class that you've taken so far, and why has that been either something that pushed you outside your comfort zone or something that you really enjoyed?
For me, is the consulting lab. So essentially, it's a experiential learning opportunity where you serve as a MBA consultant to help a company in the city to solve a business problem. So really enjoyed the experience. I worked with First Data, a leading financial service company in the city, helped them price their product. So that's great learning experience. Apply what I learned in school to solve a real life problem. So that's one class that I particularly enjoyed.
Karthik here. So for me, it would be marketing by Professor Adam Walter. I think he's a favorite among all the MBA ones. Just the way he delivers his lectures. There's a lot of cases that he delivers in class. There's also a lot of advertisements and marketing strategies from very recent examples that he covers. So the class is always relevant, and I always look forward to attending that class. I'm also a big fan of the TV show Mad Men, and he's referenced that more than a couple of times in his class because that show was about advertising and marketing. So yeah, that's my favorite class.
I've been taking a couple of different classes, but I can move farther away from Professor Damodaran and his valuation class. I've read his book before when I was working with that. I loved it, and I was like, probably going to be repetitive. I'd say he definitely lives up to his reputation. It's incredible, and I'm highly recommended all my peer MBA twos that haven't taken it, and all the MBA ones to take it. It's been really super interesting. I really liked the subject, and it was incredible. So that's an easy pick for me.
Hi. So I think another course that I found very interesting has been the strategy course that we've been taking this semester. It's a core course. Frankly, Professor Lee has actually joined us from INSEAD, and this is his first semester teaching at Stern. I think the course pushes you to sort of think about general stuff that you may be aware of in a more strategic fashion. So, for example, one of my most interesting cases was Coffee Wars in India, which was about Cafe Coffee Day and Starbucks in India. And I'm from India, and I hadn't quite thought about this till I came to school, read the case, and then I was like, okay, so like this is a great. This opens up a world of possibilities. That's one class that I definitely recommend. One thing on my bucket list with respect to my Stern experience was, of course, experiential learning. I was very interested in these kind of hands-on courses. So I'm signed up for 2 next semester, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Excellent. So for those of you, not for those of you, but for those of you listening who may not be aware, we do have multiple MBA programs here at Stern. So we have the traditional 2-year full-time MBA, as well as a 1-year tech MBA and a 1-year fashion and luxury MBA. So for the students here with me now, can you talk about how you've interacted with students from those other programs, and have you taken any classes that have had a lot of overlap there?
We also have the Langone, the part-time program, and that's where I've had the most experience in classes. I've taken a couple of night classes, which usually are like professionals from the industry that come to school to talk. Some of my favorite classes are also like the night classes, and within the Energy Club also I have a lot of interaction with the part-time students, and it's pretty seamless. Like, we're all Stern alums. We're all going to be Stern alums at some point. We're all in the same school. It's a fairly, I'd say it's a concise environment in a good way, that it's similar people that want to help you and want to be a part of it. They have a slightly different like recruiting and timelines for their classes and stuff. So at some point it's harder to interact, but all the interactions I've had so far with tech MBAs, with luxury, and with the Langones are pretty seamless. And again, it's a good thing. They're all great people as my classmates. So it's pretty interesting.
I got a chance to interact with tech MBAs quite a bit because I was taking some technology-related classes. Most of them are from the technology industry, not really looking to change the industry. So they have a unique perspective or experience they can share regarding the industry as a general, as well as some of the practices the company they worked for before. So I find those insights very valuable and relevant to the class that I was taking. And from a social perspective, they are integrated into the larger Stern sort of social activities.
So what advice would you all give to an incoming international student on how to be successful in the MBA program?
So I think success in the MBA program is defined, is a very personal sort of definition. It depends on what you came to do, what you are seeking from an MBA program. for a lot of people, that's more exposure to from that angle. Stern has a wide variety of courses and electives that you can take. For a lot of people, it's getting access or basically being part of a community of really driven individuals. And I think from that perspective, the Stern MBA class is fairly, we have a great sense of community, and it's fairly diverse and international. So I think that aspect gets taken care of as well. And from a career perspective, Stern's a well-reputed school in the US. There are a lot of resources in terms of helping you recruit or position yourself best when it comes when, like, you start school, and like come fall, it's recruiting season or mayhem sometimes. But I feel like depending on what you want, it's important to know what your priorities are and then make those choices, because it's the typical MBA dilemma. You can't do everything. So know what your priorities are and make choices accordingly. I think that's one way to be successful.
Anyone want to add on to that?
I think there's mainly three aspects of the MBA life, which is social, career, and academic. So remembering this at some point, it's hard. As the MBA once here were remembering me from the first semester and like recruiting, you get caught up in a lot of that. But I think it's very important to remember, like, we're coming to school to enjoy the academic part of it too, to like have classes and enjoy your classes, and also not to never forget like the social part and the network you're creating with your classmates and friends is also one of the biggest value added propositions of the MBA. So I'd say that at some point, just stopping to remember that, like, balancing those three things, it's very important. You can never do all, but it's very important always to take time, even when you're recruiting, to have some fun and like be with your friends. And even when you're in finals week that you have to prepare for interviews, or even when you're partying at some point at Stern Social, or the Lava party or anything that you have classes the next day, so just remembering to balancing that, and honestly just enjoying. It's 2 years. I've said that to a couple of my classmates. It's 2 years of the most fun and easiest job we'll ever have. So just literally have fun while doing it.
Question about career goals and whether or not you felt your goals shift during your MBA experience, or did you come in with a solid idea of what you wanted to do and just follow that path through and through?
Hi, Karthik here. It's completely okay and normal for career goals to shift once you come to the MBA program. As I said earlier, it does help to have some sense of focus, but I think a lot of my friends at Stern and at other business schools as well, career paths pivot, and the school and everybody else is completely understanding of that. I think as far as choosing a career path is concerned, one slight caveat that I would mention as an international student is that you are limited to a set of industries. So if you say want to go into, so for example, I wanted to do real estate, so I have to be cognizant of the fact that real estate is a bit tricky when it comes to recruitment. So that's why I also pivoted my path to primarily consulting and then keeping real estate as a parallel path. If I would have gone just for real estate, then that might have ended up being a little challenging for me eventually. So I think choosing a career path which is interesting but also is achievable is important when you come to Stern or to any other MBA program in the US for that matter.
Yeah, I think just kind of like going back to if people change career goals. I always tell people that I'm the investment banker that was never meant to be. I came to school, I wasn't even a part of my essays or anything. It just became because I wanted to work in finance within renewable energy and energy space. So I thought it was a good idea to go into that for the summer to get the experience. I got in, actually enjoyed it, and I'm coming back. And I think Bartik did a good point of like just being cognizant, as I think that's the same answer I gave before about the challenges of international recruiting. Just understanding that if you're going to a less traditional pathway, it's harder, which doesn't mean it's not possible. That's the best part about like the support the school gives us. And I think all the MBA programs give you as an international. It's like just be cognizant of the challenges if you're choosing a less traditional path. But the school and your classmates and alumni, they are here to support you through that pathway, whatever that is.
Great. And so we'll end with one last question, which I think will be a nice way to wrap up our conversation here. So how do you think you've grown, either professionally or personally or both, during the MBA experience? Profound.
I can start with like the coffee related one. Like I've been walking way more than I did. I moved from Rio to New York. It's unimaginable the number of steps I do here in New York as I did before, which is a great thing. My heart's definitely enjoying it. But I think joking aside, it's like I come from Brazil, which is a very diverse country in its essence, but I can like happily say now that I have friends from China, Colombia, El Salvador, Peru, the US, Portugal, Germany, India, Australia. It is indeed very international experience. So I can mention what we were talking earlier about like the Diwali breakfast and like the celebrations, something I never had before in my life. Unfortunately, I couldn't join this year. But just talking to people, like seeing how the cultures work, that's something that I'm definitely going to carry for the rest of my life. So I think that out of the top of my mind, this is something that was really, really impressive. It's like just the amount of different experiences I've had in such a short time.
One aspect of personal growth has been that since coming here, you have to navigate everything yourself. I never stayed away from my home, so there's a lot of things that I've learned outside of school to do myself. And then, as Mauricio said, I think the cross-cultural experience that you gain is extremely important, and it's great. As soon as I joined Stern, I went on a trip to the Hamptons. It was like 100 of us went before our classes started. So that was a great experience, and that was a great chance for me to get to know my classmates from all across, from the US as well as from other countries. So that is one way that I have grown personally. I think what the MBA experience equips you with is that you are just up for any challenge. So like the amount of work that we do daily right now, I think, at least personally for me, I could not have imagined myself tackling so many things at once a few months back. So I think the MBA experience at Stern really equips you to take any challenge head on. And I think that's really important, not just at work, but in general in life. So I think that's the biggest learning for me.
Excellent. I want to take a minute to thank our panelists for their honesty and just sharing so much about their MBA experience and their own personal life experiences as well. So we have up on the screen here a couple of ways that you can stay in touch. The first email address you see listed is our general admissions inbox. So that can be used for any technical questions you have about applying, and that's answered by members of the admissions committee. The second email address is our graduate ambassadors. So those are current MBA 2s who are happy to answer any questions you have about the student experience. You can also visit our website for more upcoming webinars, events, and just other opportunities to learn more about the MBA program. We will be sending out a link to this webinar after we conclude here today. So if you want to go back and listen again, share it with a friend, feel free to do so. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and we hope to either see you on campus shortly or read your application in the future. Thanks so much.